Sports presents the Mile High Hockey Podcast with Mike Evans, presented by Fort Comfort Gutters. Now here's your host with the latest on the Burgundy and Blue, Mike Evans.
Hey everybody, welcome into the Mile High Hockey Podcast brought to you by Fort Comfort Gutters. I'm Mike Evans, and let's get right to our guest, Ray Ferraro, 18 years in the NHL as a player, and now an outstanding analyst for ESPN. And welcome him to the podcast. Ray, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm, we're into the kind of feels like the meat of the season now, and starting to see what teams are and what they're not. And, for me, I've been lucky enough to do this for 23 years and on the broadcast side. And what changes year to year is often the same year to year. And there's teams that are pumped, there's teams that aren't, and everybody in the middle. And it's, but we're starting to get into what teams really are now.
Well, I do want to get a more global view of the NHL as we move along, but I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on the Avalanche, because you saw them first game of the season against Chicago, and right now they're in a span of hockey where they're 2-4 in their last 6 games, and we're speaking right after they lost to Seattle, and they're 4-5 in their last 9 games against Seattle, and the Kraken have scored the first goal in all 9 of those games. What is it about about Seattle that makes this such a tough matchup for the Avs?
Well, I don't really know, because the thing that Seattle causes problems for teams is that they're very fast, and they're fast really up and down their lineup. When Colorado plays at their best, they're a very quick team. It's not just that McKinnon can skate really fast and Makar can skate like he does. It's that they play the game quickly, but they seem to have trouble squaring up against Seattle's speed. And that's how Seattle got to the playoffs last year. That's how Seattle knocked Colorado out, and then almost got through the second round too. And I think Colorado's in my mind, they're an interesting team because the top end of their roster is so exceptional. I think people expect that to be exceptional every night, which it can't be, right? There's just too many games. And where they might run into trouble is past those top guys. Can they get enough from the rest of their group? And that's kind of an ongoing thing for them. I mean, you lose Gabe Landeskog, and you don't just find another Gabe Landeskog, right? You just don't have it. I mean, how did they get him? They finished last and drafted him first. So those guys just aren't out there.
The Avs are 2-4 in their last 6, and this is after the 6-0 start. And earlier this week, Jared Bednar talked about needing more commitment. What does that mean to you when you hear that word?
Well, it means on the nights you don't have your best game, you don't have your A game, your legs, there's some nights you just feel it, right? Everything, puck comes to you, you know where it goes, you get it to the right person at the right time, and other nights it isn't there. So to me, the commitment is to have the work there, have the work available all the time, or as much as you can. So on the nights you don't have it, the edges of your game don't get soft, because I said this a little earlier, about the top end of their roster and how incredibly gifted they are. But if everybody loses 5 or 7% of their game, not much, right? Just a little bit, and that goes through your roster, then you're not committed into the way that you have to play. And not everybody can do it. I mean, I would say I was an average detail guy. When I felt it, I was really sharp. When I didn't, I'd get frustrated. And the more frustrated you get, the harder you try, the worse it gets. And you have to, as I've learned, you have to be able to settle back on something that is consistent. And I think Avs fans would agree, when you watch their team, the most frustrating part is sometimes they're all over the map. They're great, and then they're no good, and then they're great, and that might even be in the same period. And you're like, how does that happen? And so I think that's what Jared is talking about commitment into the hard, detail, boring part of the game.
Busy with ESPN analyst Ray Ferraro, and you mentioned the supporting cast. There's no doubt the Avalanche core is outstanding, one of the best, if not the best, in the NHL. But that supporting cast, Joe Sakic, Chris McFarland, they kind of retooled it this year. New faces, Miles Wood, Ryan Johansson, Ross Colton, Jonathan Drouin, Thomas Tatar. Do you like these pieces around the core, potentially?
I think I like some of it. Look, Jonathan Drouin, till the day he leaves this game, will have beside his name 3rd overall pick in the draft. He's not that anymore. Like his career is gone, the way it's gone, and there's a reason you're able to sign him for $850,000. So you can't expect $3 million of production out of a player that is really he might be on his last swing here. And the reason they took the swing is because of the familiarity with Nate McKinnon. And maybe you can capture a little bit of that. But if you go back, I had the number when I was, when I did the Avs games, and I want to say he has like 8 goals in his last 170 games. It's just, so they're hoping maybe lightning will strike there a little bit. And if it does, then that's a spot that maybe they get a production that exceeds what they really think is possible. Thomas Tatar's got, he scores 20 goals all the time. Pace is always a problem with Thomas. I've known him since he broke into the NHL. He was drafted in Detroit, same year as my son. And so I watched him literally from his first steps in pro hockey. And he's a smart player, but he seems like he's not in sync with what they're doing and how they play in Colorado. And it's not an effort thing, really, with either of them. It's not. Both of them have the common thread that they're not super fast, and the pace of the Avs game might be a little much for them. I like Colton. I think he's a solid player. He's a 3rd-line player, but he's a solid guy. Miles Wood is what you see is what you get. Like there's going to be some nights like the other night against Jersey where he's all over it. And then there's going to be some nights he's quieter, but he's big and he's strong and he can skate. When you're trying to work around the edges of your roster, you don't have a lot of money to spend. And so you make these low dollar bids and bets and hope that a couple of them hit, because they're not all going to.
Do they have enough to win a Stanley Cup?
You know what? I'm November the whatever it is today. I was going to give you the date, but I forgot. I think would it be the 10th maybe today?
10th. Yeah.
10th. There we go. See, I got it. Not bad. I'm going to say no. I don't think so. And the reason is because I don't think they have the depth to beat an LA or certainly Vegas. Like the in a playoff series, the depth becomes so critical because guys are going to get banged up, and then you need more from the top end. Like think of when the Avs won, and some of the production they got, like big goals from players that you might not have expected to score, and they just don't appear right now like they have that. However, in a month, some of these guys might settle in. And so everybody wants the answer today, but really the answer is such a long answer, and I think that's the challenge of this schedule is like, you can be bad, good, and all of a sudden, if you can just get yourself into position to get in, then you legit have a chance. I mean, I'm saying no, I don't think they have enough, but I think they're a contender. They're right in that group.
Is Patrick Kane the potential answer?
Oh boy. Okay, so nobody has come back from that surgery and been exceptional. Like that's a big surgery And so history tells me that to expect Patrick Kane to be Patrick Kane that we know of even just a couple years ago, might be a stretch. But maybe he's different. You know, like, he's so smart. He really is. He plays the game like a genius to go with the skills that he has. Now, I watched him in New York last year in the playoffs. We did a lot of their games down the stretch, and he wasn't the same. You know, and so, but if you're asking me, could Patrick Kane be an upgrade in their top six on what they have? Yes, absolutely. And he wants to go somewhere that's got a chance. He doesn't, right? Like, he wants to play. He wants to try to win. He wants, like, this is really, for him, when he comes back, it would be this is like a last kick at the can health-wise for Patrick.
Speaking of health, where is your level of optimism or pessimism about Gabe Landeskog's return?
No, not this year. You know, I just don't see it. And man, it sounds like the complications of rehab, of the type of injuries that he's had to deal with, or leave everything up in the air. Now, you know, like, I tore my ACL. I had 6 surgeries on the other knee. That was the good knee. And you just don't come back the same in most cases. To be away for, you know, almost 2 years, it would be, I mean, if he's able to come back, man, that would be amazing. If he does, what type of Gabe Landeskog is there? Because so much of his game is energy and emotion and physicality. And would he be able to do that? I mean, I don't know how anybody could have any real sense of that.
Visiting with ESPN's Ray Ferraro, based on and judging on your experience as a player and now as an analyst, help me out with this one, because we've seen some debatable hits lately.
Yep.
And we saw one in the Seattle game with Andrew Cogliano getting hit from behind. No penalty was called. Bo Byram stepped up, ended up getting in a fight, ended up getting the extra 2 minutes.
Right.
After the game, Jared Bednar came out and said, look, it's pretty simple. The back was turned. The numbers were shown. It should have been a penalty. It wasn't. I think a lot of hockey fans, myself included, are kind of frustrated because there doesn't seem to be any real rhyme or reason or any real consistency when it comes to legislating these hits. What is a good, hard-hitting hockey hit? What is over the line dirty?
Well, I would say, okay, the dirty is different than a bad hit. Like, dirty to me is intent. And a lot of these hits, I don't think there's intent. Does not mean it's not a penalty. But, and I hear the frustration, because to me, any hit from square up behind the guy should be penalized. The 3 feet around the boards, all the way around the rink, 3 most dangerous feet in the sport. And the potential for something really bad to happen is right there. The speed of the game, it doesn't take much for a player to start to make a hit, to commit to the hit, and then the guy with the puck try to do something else and turn. Because as I'm making the hit, if I'm going to hit you, I'm anticipating what you're going to do. Like, that's part of my, you know, my angle and my direction. And if you do something else, I might not, in some cases, be able to stop. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a fender bender and the car stops in front of you and you know you have to stop, but you bump their bumper. And I've had it each way, right? And you're like, you know what you have to do, but you can't. There's no time. And so it might look like, if there's a couple of feet between me and you and I'm going to hit you, it might look like that's lots of time, but really it's a heartbeat. And so I don't think you can even legislate all of them to be a penalty, but I'm always on the side of caution, I'd rather make that call more than less. And if the players don't like it, too bad. Because when you're in the fog of the game, you can't see the danger sometimes. if you're the official, that has to be paramount in what you look at. And I think sometimes the game happens really fast and, I think that was a penalty. Was it a penalty? And then it's too late and it's on to the next play. I think that likely happens a lot.
Taking a look at the NHL season so far, again, we're still in the infant stages, so you can't draw any hard and fast conclusions. But at least to this point, is there a most surprising NHL team so far for you?
Oh, I think there's a couple. I live out in Vancouver, and I don't think many people had Vancouver off to the start that they're having. I did the game last night in Ottawa. They didn't play their A game, but they won anyway. In the past, that wouldn't have happened. Los Angeles just won 7 straight on the road, and they lost last night. But I think that's a better team than I thought. Now, is their goalie going to hold up? Their goaltending, Cam Talbot? Nah, I don't know, but that's going to be a question. Boston, I thought without Bergeron and without Krejci, that they were going to take a big backwards dive. They had to trade Taylor Hall for cap purposes. It looks like they're never going to give up any goals. And, it's amazing. And so they're rolling along again. I didn't see that. I didn't see that. On the other end, I mean, it's hard to look past the Oilers, right? Like, right. Who saw that? I mean, they go into San Jose and they lose last night. They're a mess. And here's the problem in season, Mike. It's like, how do you fix it? What trade is there? Who's got a deal that's really going to help you out? The answer is nobody. Or if they do, they're not your friend. They're not giving you a really great deal. And so Edmonton would be by far the most disappointing team in the league.
Oh, you got to fire the coach, right? I mean, unfortunately, fire the coach, hope for the new coach bump.
Well, what else? I'm not advocating for anybody to lose their job here, right? But I'm totally with you. Like, what else are you going to do? Like, could you? And you don't need to have the best goaltending in the league, but you can't have the worst. Edmonton has the worst. So that makes Jay Woodcroft a really bad coach, whether he is or isn't. If the guy in the back can't stop the puck ever, then you've got problems. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I think this is maybe the best part of sport is the unpredictability of it. Like 6 weeks ago, when everybody was picking, like all the media and that were picking their Stanley Cup contenders, the Oilers were one of them. Now here we are 14 games into the season and oh my God, you can't even believe it. Like, how does that happen? And I'm sure Kenny Holland and the staff in Edmonton are trying to figure out too, just exactly what's gone wrong so badly.
Well, this has been great. I got to tell you, we talked a little bit before we started. Mark Schlereth, my radio partner, I told him that we were going to be visiting. I said, did you cross paths with Ray at ESPN? He goes, oh, yeah, I loved Ray. Chicken parm.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I assume you really love chicken parm.
Okay, so I think it's the best meal on the planet. There is no end to the amount that I can eat it. But here's how this started was back in the day, ESPN was like one building, right? Like, and they were just building this new digital center that was going to change everything, right? Of course, they got 6 buildings past it now, but there was no cafeteria. So I would get there in the afternoon, we'd have our show meeting, and then we'd eat, but then we'd watch games till the show NHL Tonight started. There was this one little tiny Italian place across the street. And like, I was there for a month and I think I ordered chicken parm 25 times. And so one day I spill it. We had these lousy plastic forks and the fork broke and it fell in the sauce and it splashed all over my suit. And we go on the air and John Butchergross decided to tell everybody why I was wearing my jacket the way I was. And so he started calling me chicken parm. And man, that was, I don't know, 25 years ago. And now I chicken parm to the day and still eat it, still love it.
That is great. What a great story. Well, Stink likes to brag that he's a hockey guy. So should we give you all the credit or all the blame for whatever he knows about hockey?
All of it. I will say, if we could have taught that fella how to skate, then you would have had a defenseman.
Yeah.
He's an eclipse. So when I'd walk into we'd do a hit on the news or on Sports Center, and sometimes I'd have to get in the chair after an NFL guy would leave, and on a good day I'm 5'9", like that's when everything's going the right way, and so that chair they'd have it like basically on the floor, and my chin would be right on the desk, and they'd be like, "You got to raise the chair." I'm like, "Yeah, I got it." The guy that got out of the chair is 6'8". So I got it, right?
So Snake more of a defenseman, or maybe that just right winger that just skates his lane, beating people up. I don't know.
I'd like him on the blue line. I would. Yeah. He covered a lot of space back there. That would be my spot for him.
Ray, this has been a lot of fun. I know you're going to be coming through town many more times this season with ESPN. We look forward to it, and I would love to be able to do this again throughout the season.
You betcha. Reach out, and love to do it, and love coming to Denver. I'm going to be there pretty quickly with the Canucks when they're there. I think it's like the 22nd.
Okay.
So I'll be in town for that, and love coming to Denver. One of the great spots.
Look forward to it. Ray Ferraro, everybody. That'll be something to look forward to. We thank you for coming on with us. The Mile High Hockey Podcast, presented by Fort Comfort Gutters.